Hi guys, so Michael Gove, who is responsible for preparing Britain for Brexit, the implementation of the withdrawal agreement, well, he talked about this in an interview, and he also talked about the internal market bill. So let's hear what he had to say.
We had a good meeting at the Joint Committee today. Vice President Maroš and I both agreed that we need to go further in making sure that the Northern Ireland Protocol and the Withdrawal Agreement are implemented. And I'm glad that we have a forward pattern of work which will ensure that we can fulfil our obligations and the EU can fulfil its.
So this is interesting. Now, of course, Michael Gove is a slippery character. So going forward, we need to read between the lines a lot in what he's actually saying. So he's saying here that we are going to implement the withdrawal agreement. But the problem with that language is that the UK government have introduced the internal market bill. Now, the internal market bill undermines the withdrawal agreement. So how can you implement the withdrawal agreement while simultaneously having this internal market bill on the table? But let's hear what else he has to say.
I think the negotiations that are taking place between Lord Frost and Michel Barnier have their own integrity, and I must respect that. So the role that I was playing today was discussing with my counterpart, Maroš the implementation of the withdrawal agreement. We had a constructive meeting. We both were clear with each other where we were still some distance apart, but we were both also clear that we wanted to bridge that gap. And I think that in future meetings that we have scheduled today, we should be able to bring both sides closer together in the interests of the European Union, the United Kingdom, and the people of Northern Ireland.
So at the beginning of this section, he said that what's taking place between the negotiations taking place between Michel Barnier and David Frost are in a sense separate to what I'm doing. This is interesting because we all know, and anyone who's been following these latest news around Brexit will understand that the internal market bill was introduced in a sense to extract concessions from the European Union. Basically, what Boris Johnson's government did was, okay, the negotiations aren't going very well. We want to extract some concessions from the European Union. We've tried everything we could. So what are we left with? Let's throw Northern Ireland under a bus. Let's threaten to break international law in order to break the deadlock to extract some concessions from the European Union. Now, that failed. It didn't work. The EU didn't buckle under that threat. They basically said, well, if you're going to do this, we're going to take you to court, but let's continue the negotiations anyway, which was quite interesting. I'd actually expected them to cancel the negotiations, but I think they understood that Boris Johnson and the Tories were playing a game. Now, it depends on whether you believe they're serious in going through with this. Boris Johnson is unpredictable, so perhaps he is, perhaps he's not. But it is interesting here, and this is probably the key to what this whole problem is about. The sense that Michael Gove said here that the negotiations taking place between Michel Barnier and David Frost are separate. What we're doing is something different. I think what Michael Gove is attempting to do is to separate the threat to the negotiations from the negotiations themselves. Now, he could be doing that because he has realized that the threat has not worked, or he could actually be doing it because the British government are attempting now to ignore the internal market bill when it comes to the withdrawal agreement. Now, they're not going to remove the withdrawal agreement because it's beneficial for them when it comes to Scotland and basically taking power away from the SNP and the Scottish people. But at the moment, I think what they're doing is they've realized that this internal market bill, used as a threat against the EU, has failed. There's also another aspect to this. The problem with this internal market bill, when it comes to Northern Ireland, is that the United States have said in their Congress, they have said that if you implement this, if you go ahead with this, we're not going to give you a trade deal. So I think it was a bad call on behalf of the British government to implement this internal market bill They've realized it hasn't worked on the EU. It definitely hasn't worked when it comes to the United States. So let's park it. And I think this is what Michael Gove is talking about here. But this is speculation on my side. Maybe he's not mentioned. Maybe he doesn't actually mean this at all. But let's go ahead.
There have been those in the European Union who have been concerned about the clauses that we've put into the UK Internal Market Bill. But I was able to stress today, as I have in the House of Commons, that these clauses are a safety net. We want to reach agreement in the Joint Committee. We want to make sure that the position of Northern Ireland is secure in the United Kingdom. We want to make sure that the withdrawal agreement is implemented in full. But those clauses are there. They're in legislation supported by the House of Commons as a safety net, if need be, and those clauses will remain in that bill.
So I think he hasn't taken it completely off the table, but I think this is more for the British public. This is not so much for the EU. I think behind closed doors, they've said to the EU, okay, we're not going to implement this internal market bill. I keep confusing the two. We're not going to implement this internal market bill when it comes to Northern Ireland. We're still going to implement it when it comes to issues that affect the UK internally, but not when it comes to the withdrawal agreement or the Good Friday Agreement, because we got frightened off it by you guys, the EU, and by the United States, because we want to have a trade deal with the United States going forward. This is, once again, as I've talked about, since I started this channel and I started talking about Theresa May and Boris Johnson, everything with them is tactical. There's no long-term strategy. It seems to be always, let's try this and see if it works. Throw this against the wall and see if it sticks. This is a terrible way to negotiate. They don't have a long-term plan. Everything is, okay, let's try this or let's try that. Does it work? Okay, let's go ahead until we reach another roadblock. But why are they doing this? Because they are afraid of a rebellion within the government or within the party itself. Boris Johnson is extremely concerned, even though he has an 80-seat majority. He has a huge majority, but he's still afraid of his backbenchers. He's afraid they will bring down his government at any moment. It's ironic that Boris Johnson ran on a platform, won an 80-seat majority, and he seems to be more afraid now than when he was in a minority government. Or with a very small majority, I should say. But I think this is, once again, an attempt to try something, see if it works. If it doesn't work, park it and try something else. This week is going to be an important week for the negotiations, and we seem to hear that every week, but it will be interesting to see what comes out of the negotiations this week. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?